One of the greatest World Series of all time crowned its champion. Baseball's confusing Infield Fly Rule is discussed, and the NFL trade deadline is today. What does that mean? That's all coming up next. Please don't freeze. Don't freeze. All right, here we go. It's the Lurks Lessons Show, your weekly deep dive into the most impactful stories from the professional sporting leagues around the country. We'll analyze, discuss, and uncover the lessons they offer. Let's dive in. Hey everybody, welcome to the show. My name is Jeff Lurking, and if this is your first time, welcome to Lurks Lessons, a sports educational platform that uses animated content to help you learn about sports and sports-related topics here on YouTube, with this show actually being on Spotify as well. So if you like what you hear or see, stick around, all right? If you actually took my advice and watched the World Series, you saw arguably one of the greatest World Series of all time. It's definitely, pundits are already talking about that it's in the top 5, 100%. And I know, I think it was the second or third episode, I was hoping for the Mariners and Brewers to make it to the final just again, because Mariners have never been there, Seattle, and the Brewers have only been there once. It's like what we got instead was an instant classic. So your boy here was totally okay with that. So we'll definitely get into the World Series breakdown, but I wanted to first start off the show a little bit different. Every single month, 4 episodes per month, I kind of want to do a reassess. There's the word. A reassess on just the content that I'm doing, and also just to figure things out, because this is brand new. And what I'm choosing to do going forward is to do what's coming up next on the Lurks Lessons channel first at the top of the episode, and then go into all of the topics that we will discuss and close with our YouTube comments, okay? So if you want to skip ahead to the next chapter, which we're going to be talking about the World Series, go on ahead. But if you want to know what's coming up with the channel and some of the really, really cool things that have been cooking, stick around, all right? So the first thing we're going to talk about is the ebook of the Major League Baseball World Series is done. It's 140 pages. Everybody, like, it was a long time to get this sucker done, okay? Now, if you're wondering, like, Jeff, why would you even put together an ebook about all the World Series together where I can just go on Wikipedia or just look it up on my phone? You're not wrong, and I would encourage you to do that. If you're a huge fan of baseball in general, and you like to see stats, and you like to see diagrams or graphs, or better yet, just artwork in general, this ebook could be for you, okay? So link is in the description, and if you want to have that for your personal library, go on ahead. The good thing about going forward is that I will be literally updating that every single year. It's literally just adding one more page to the project files and sending it out as a PDF, and it's there for the taking. Now, if you are a Lurks Lessons community member that helps this channel, then that is a perk that you will receive for free as a member of the Lurks Lessons community. So that you can expect that, along with all the other NBA, Super Bowl ebooks that are currently available. And then next year, the NHL and MLS will be also slated for those as well. So head on over to the link in the description that you can get your copy today. But yeah, I'm so grateful that sucker is done. That took a long time to do. And yeah, it coincides with the Major League Baseball World Series Champions video that just released yesterday of this recording. So that has also been updated. So that has been a very long journey. I'm happy to see it done. And I'll also share with you one of the pages out of that book when we talk about the World Series on screen, so you can just see its beautiful color. All right. But the big update I want to share with you is this guy right here, Franchise. All right. Franchise, if this is your first time tuning in, Franchise is going to be the first board game from the Lurks Lessons platform. And what it is a deck building strategy game that you have to build a roster, win championships, and not go bankrupt. Okay. These are the 4 on the screen right now. I have the 4 fictitious franchises that you can pick. And the goal is to have that available in like late of 2026 of next year. And so in order to hit that particular deadline, I am also now working with platforms to help me get to that deadline. Okay. And so I am so new to this whole board game designing / board game business. I started this project back in November of 22. And what I'm learning right now, and this is where we're currently at in the stage of progress, is I'm now working with 3 or soon to be 3 entities. Okay. Like your first one is the manufacturer, the folks that have to literally build this board game. Okay. So that's the, let's say, stage A. Stage C, I'm skipping B for a reason, but stage C would be the marketing folks. So I've already talked with a certain marketing folks that I met at Gen Con this past year that will help me get to where I need to be in order to help do a Kickstarter campaign, which that will launch in August of 2026. So keep your eye on that date. But learning with them, like, okay, what all needs to make sure that you have a successful fundraising campaign to pay for the manufacturer to go ahead and make the said game. Now, stage B, that particular entity is what is called the manufacturer intermediary. Okay. So once you get the funding, you pay the manufacturer, it's up to you if you're wanting to do this by yourself instead of selling your board game to a publisher. You can actually hire a service that is a manufacturing intermediary. Wow, this is very hard to say. Manufacturing intermediary. There it is. What they will do is they'll essentially pick up the pallets of the board game at the manufacturer and then facilitate all of the orders, do the customer service, all that kind of stuff. Okay. Obviously, each particular group has a certain investment that comes with it. And I've already spoken to group A and group C, and I actually have a meeting scheduled with a potential group B in order to get that entire process taken care of. So in the meantime, what I've been doing is I've been actually taking the designs and updating them based off of the feedback that we got from Gen Con, but also to redesign certain aspects after talking with the manufacturer and what I need to do in order to make that happen in a more seamless process. Okay. All you need to know is your boy here is now kind of working on this particular bad boy to make sure that all that stuff goes into play, because it takes, 8 to 10 weeks for manufacturing. And then there's so many other weeks that go prior to that in order to get to manufacturing. So 2026 is going to be pretty big. And what I want to do going forward is to probably create a video series showing you how to play this game, but also to show you other aspects of that as well. So that franchise video series is kind of percolating in my mind right now, that I kind of want to do it either at the beginning of January or beginning of 2026 or somewhere around that time. Okay, so that's definitely coming up in the channel. I can't wait for all of you to see that, because I've been holding this close to my vest since 22, just because I didn't feel like I was ready to announce it to the world yet. But after Gen Con, a lot of people are like, well, where can we find this? And I was like, you can't yet. So I think it's time to start opening the doors and being like, yeah, this is what's going on. Okay, so look forward to that. But in the short term, meantime, if that's the right way to say it, I am going to be leaning towards creating another higher level video for the football series right now with Sports 101. So we just did the football terminology. I do want to dive into either the football offensive formations or the defensive formations, especially, and we'll talk about this with the NFL trade deadline later in the show. We're getting into that halfway mid-season point of the season. And I really think that, just as data has shown in the past previous years, that football really starts to get a lot of traction. So I want to ride that wave. Okay. So that's what's up for Lurks Lessons. Okay. So let's dive into our topics for today. Wow. This is going to be the last time we see the bracket on its beautiful full screen here. Dodgers come out, and man, I definitely watched Game 6 and Game 7, and it's a tough loss for you Blue Jays fans. It's a tough loss. There were so many things that the Dodgers just would not go away. They would not. And when you thought Toronto was right there to clinch their third title in franchise history, going 3 for 3, it just kept slipping through their fingers. Now, this is the interesting thing about sports. Is it more of like, did the Dodgers were that good that they won it outright, or did the Blue Jays have all their opportunities slip through their fingers? You know, like, what's the narrative? And if you're a fan of the Dodgers, you're probably like, no, like they were resilient and they did what they had to do, and you're not wrong. And then if you're the Blue Jays, it's like, oh, they had so many chances, they literally choked. Okay, that could be the narrative too. So at the end of the day, as a fan, full disclosure, neither of these teams were my team that I pull for personally. But as a fan of the sport, this was highly entertaining. There's so many things that I really want to dive into to just kind of show you the amount of entertainment, drama, historical feats that just we witnessed. Okay. And so Yoshinobu Yamamoto won the MVP for the Dodgers. So he wins the MVP. I really thought Shohei would win it, but nope, it was Yoshinobu that won it. So here we go. Here is a great look. If you're looking on screen right now instead of listening, this is straight out of the page of the ebook. Okay, and this is kind of what you get. All right, you get every single game. The runs, hits, errors, the winning pitcher, the losing pitcher, the saves, in some cases, a World Series fun fact, the postseason all laid out, and then their wins and appearances all on there. Okay, this is for every single World Series matchup. All right. And if you're thinking it's like, Jeff, that probably took a long time. You're right. It did take a long time. I'm sorry. I definitely laugh at myself all the time. This is nothing new. Okay. Anyways, I just kind of want to rattle off some of these incredible World Series like things that had happened. Okay. So game 1, fresh out of the gate, game 1, Toronto pinch hitter Addison Barger hits the first pinch hit grand slam in World Series history. All right. Game 3, we talked about in a previous episode, but that lasted 18 innings. It tied for the longest World Series game by innings. It wasn't the longest game overall. And Ohtani in that game tied for the all-time record for most times on base in a game, which was 9. And I remember going off on that in a previous episode where the dude, every time he was at the plate, he got on base, which was 9 times. Okay, that's just unheard of. Game 5, though, for the Blue Jays, rookie pitcher Trey Yusavage, I think that's how you say his last name. I could be butchering that. Yusavage pitched 7 innings, had 12 strikeouts, 1 earned run, and that is literally the most for a rookie in the World Series. So a World Series record for a rookie. All right. And if you think about it too, like, what is it? Like, it was at that time, game 5, Blue Jays go up 3-2 at LA and come home with home field advantage to win at least one of the 2 next games. And their rookie ends up doing that performance. They win 6-1 that game. Oh no, that's not all she wrote, because game 7 comes around. You got Max Scherzer. If that name sounds familiar, he's a World Series champion. He was the oldest pitcher to start for the Blue Jays in Game 7 in a winner-take-all World Series game at the ripe old age of 41 years old, okay? But here's one of the most incredible stats. In Game 7, the Dodgers were the first team ever to trail in the 9th inning of a World Series Game 7 on the road and come back to win it in subsequent extra innings. First team to ever do that. And then the last note I do want to share is Ernie Clement from Toronto. He broke the most hits in a single postseason with 30 hits. And that kind of harkens back to what we talked about in previous episodes about batting average. And I even shared in looking at this World Series that, Toronto had one of the highest batting averages of a team to get on base. And the fact that this guy breaks a postseason record is wild. Okay. But one of the things I kind of wanted to touch on was Game 6. Because I watched this in real time and I was just perplexed on what I just saw. Okay. And if you're a Blue Jays fan, I apologize for bringing this up because this is heartbreaking. So the Dodgers end up winning this game by 2 runs. Okay. They won 3-1 in this game, but it's the bottom of the 9th. The Blue Jays get runners at second and third with 0 outs. Okay. The likelihood of that, like your odds of getting that scenario to score a run is very, very high. You get a base hit, technically, depending on how fast the runners are, you can score 2 runs just off of a base hit. And the game would be tied at 3, and then who knows what would have happened, especially when you have 0 outs and you technically don't have a forced double play. So the commentators actually made a valid point because they were like, do they bring in Tyler Glasnow who could be the starting pitcher of Game 7, or should they bring him now in as a reliever because they wanted to use Shohei Ohtani? Because as we talked about the Ohtani rule last week, if you're a starting pitcher and also the DH, you can still be in the lineup. Oh, if you bring in then you don't get Ohtani's pitching. So it was almost like a chess match. And so they bring in Tyler to pitch. The dude throws 3 pitches and he gets all 3 outs. The brother only had to throw 3 pitches. I'm sitting there watching this and I'm like, he just threw 3 pitches and the side's retired and the Dodgers see it Game 7. The Rogers Stadium, which is where Toronto plays at, they were like, what did we just watch? What? And so what happened was the batter comes up, the first pitch Tyler throws, it's a pop-up first out, okay? Second pitch, I think it's a ball. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he throws a ball. The third pitch, hitter gets a nice line drive out into center left field, I think. But it came in too hot, and so it's kind of like a line drive, and the center fielder was right there to catch it. Well, the runners, especially the runner on second, thought it was going to be a base hit. And so like I shared before, if you get a base hit, you're gunning it to home to tie the game. Well, he realized, he was like maybe 3 to 4 steps away from third where he had to turn back around because the center fielder caught it, beelines it to second, gets a double play. And Rogers Stadium goes silent. And you don't typically see that because it's like usually a battle, especially when a reliever comes in with 0 outs and you have a runner on second and third threatening to tie the game up with the ongoing run at the plate. You're just like, what? It's just, again, I'm not trying to make the Toronto faithful feel really bad about it, but it was like stuff like that happened where you're just like, what did we just witness? Like this isn't the norm here, okay? So to close this segment out, Dodgers are the first team to repeat as World Series champions since the Yankees did it 3 times in a row from 98 to 2000. So it's been over about 20 years since we've seen a back-to-back champion, which I think is good for the league. To have parity like that. But it's the first time a national league, because the Yankees are in the American League and the Jays did it before them to win back-to-back. That's the American League. A National League team has not won back-to-back since the Big Red Machine. Cincinnati Reds did it from, 75 to 76. So that is even a longer streak that a National League team has not won back-to-back. So again, it was a highly entertaining World Series. It checked all the boxes. It was incredibly entertaining. But yeah, I'll be shocked to see something like that again next year. So anyways, all that to say is I hope you enjoyed watching the World Series because I saw a lot of new viewers coming in because of the World Series to the Sports 101 Guide to Baseball. And so if you're here because of that video, welcome to the show. And welcome to the channel, because you're going to see more of that content of just helping explain how this sport is played and along with other things. And that's what this show is about. So on top of that, we're going to do one more baseball topic to explain to you as the season has officially closed. Okay. And we probably want to open up another rule topic or just something about baseball until next year. Okay. So I wanted to talk about the infield fly rule because a couple of you have mentioned about it in the Sports 101 Guide to Baseball comments. And it is a very confusing rule. I do plan to include this in a subsequent or upcoming video where we do the next tier up, like we did the beginner's guide. There's going to be an intermediate guide to baseball. This is going to be included in that, okay? But I wanted to take the time to just have my face show to you what the infield fly rule is about, all right? So let's kind of make sure that we have a solid definition of what that is, and it will pop up underneath on the lower third here. But the rule is to protect base runners from being forced to advance when a fly ball is intentionally dropped by the defense to create a double play opportunity. So essentially, to be a little like cheeky, if you will, if the ball is hit up in the air in fair territory, so within the baselines, and instead of catching it to make it an out, when that happens, the runner can stay on base as opposed to being advancing to the next base. Well, to be cheeky is you're about to catch it, but you let it drop purposefully. Now you have the hitter, now base runner is running to first. Now all the other base runners have to advance forward. So technically what you could do before this rule, the ball drops, you pick it up, and then you go ahead and do your force outs, because throwing the ball is a lot faster than running to the bases, okay? So technically you could pick the ball up, throw it to second, and then to first, and then boom, you got a double play, innings over, and that's it. This rule literally protects the base runners from doing that, okay? But it's only invoked on certain occasions, okay? And this is where it gets a little confusing. The first one is that runners on first and second base or loaded is when it's invoked, okay? That's very important. First, second, or loaded. So if it's on first base, it's not invoked. Fewer than 2 outs in the inning, and batter hits in the ball in a fair territory. So it can't be foul territory and the runner, or the defender drops it purposely. If it's in foul territory, then it becomes a strike, okay? When everybody knows the infield fly rule is imposed is when the umpire calls it out by raising his hand in the air and literally says infield fly, and he keeps his hand up. That literally lets everybody know who's paying attention that the infield fly rule is invoked. Okay, so again, first and second, runners on first and second have to be on there, and it's less than 2 outs. Okay, so the runners really need to pay attention anytime. Like, first of all, the runners have to pay attention regardless if it's a pop up, especially in the infield. Hence the infield fly rule. If it's in the outfield, it doesn't matter. But if it's in the infield, you should, if you're a base runner, you look up, you look at the umpire. If you see the umpire going like this, and this is before the ball is even dropped, then you can just stay on the bag and you don't have to worry about being out, essentially. Because what that means is that even if the ball drops and the umpire says infield fly rule, that batter who hit the ball high in the air, they're automatically out, even if the ball was dropped. Okay, a good scenario of this, of like, well, Jeff, why wouldn't the infielder catch it? So let's say the ball is hit up high in the air and it's where the pitcher, right around where the pitcher is, and he's trying to get underneath it. Well, the third baseman and the second shortstop are coming in too to try to catch it. So now you have 3 players that are underneath this ball that is probably trying to communicate to each other, like, I got it, no, you got it. And then they all kind of like fan out before the ball drops because everybody assumed they were going to catch the ball. That would be almost kind of like an infield fly rule where like, no, batter's out. One of y'all should have caught that. And these 2 runners over here on first and second, or the base is loaded, they're safe. All right, we're just going to call this batter out and then we're moving on to the next one. So that way there is no double play and there's no confusion after that. All right. Now, once that is literally said, if the runners want to tag up, then they could do so, but they have to be tagged out. They can't be forced out. The force out is completely taken out of the play at that point. Okay. It is confusing. It is often rarely seen. And once it happens, it's kind of like a squeeze play that you don't typically see, or getting into a pickle. Like you don't really see that either. It's just like when you see it, you're like, ooh, that's different. So I hope that at least gives you a basic understanding. And to recap, it's literally, it has to be invoked by the umpire. It typically only happens when there's runners on first and second, or the bases are loaded, less than 2 outs, and it has to be in fair territory. Okay. So if you ever see the umpire at the behind home plate go like this, sorry, I'm out of frame, go like this with one finger pointed up in the air, and he's holding it up there, that is what that means. Okay. It's called the Infield Fly Rule. I will cover that again in a future Sports 101 episode when it comes to intermediate baseball. Cool. Okay, so now that baseball has closed its doors of the 2025 season, we will be discussing more on other sports that are going on. All right, we're here in November, and usually around this time, especially the first week of November, is the NFL trade deadline. Okay, usually it happens on the first Tuesday of November because that's technically after the Monday Night Football game. That's the middle marker of the next week of the entire season. Okay. So today at 4 p.m., probably when this episode is live, it's past that time. But essentially today is the last opportunity a team can actually trade players during the regular season without needing to wait for waivers or off-season rules. Okay. So typically it happens in the halfway point, and you will see either two things that will go on. You will see some teams go and push for a long playoff possible championship of that year. It's kind of like, all right, we're at the top of the league right now. We're going to put all our eggs in this basket. We're going to put all our eggs in this season, and we're just going to gun for it. And so you'll see some pieces move for that main objective. Again, on the other side of that spectrum, you see some teams that are just barely 1-win, 2-win teams that are just like, yep, mathematically, we're pretty much not going to make it a far run right now. So why don't we go ahead, maybe trade off some cap space, trade off some players, and get better draft picks so that way we can build for next season and beyond. Okay. You'll start to see this happen, especially today. And probably you'll see some like reports that will kind of start trickling in even past the 4 p.m. deadline, because once it's submitted to the league before 4 p.m., the league takes its time to, like say it's a good trade or not, or approve the trade, if you will. All right. So you've already started seeing some teams do this already with some of their players. We talked about Joe Flacco being traded from the Browns to the Bengals and how that all came about. So like you started to see some teams already moving some pieces, but today is the final deadline. So from here on out, there's no more trades in between teams in the league. Okay. So what I wanted to do is to kind of give you like where we looking at as far as the top 5 teams in the league at large, and to see these are probably the teams that are going to be doing a strong push for the Super Bowl this year. And the first one, you got to mention it, it's the Buffalo Bills. And I think I'm back in earlier episodes, I even mentioned like I feel like this is the team that's going to have a long run. Well, they beat their arch rival, Kansas City Chiefs, last night from this recording, 28-1 or 21. It wasn't last night. It was probably over the weekend. I don't remember if it was a Sunday or a Sunday night game, but essentially the Bills beat them during the regular season. Now that's great that they beat them in the regular season, but where it really counts is the postseason. And that's where they've always had trouble with them. And so they're now 6-2. They look poised to make a long, long run in the postseason. Who's up there with them is the Philadelphia Eagles, defending Super Bowl champs. They're also 6-2. They just came off of a bye this past weekend, so we'll see how that rest helps them going forward. But they look poised. The next team is actually quite surprising. I don't think a lot of NFL experts saw the Indianapolis Colts be where they're at right now at 7-2. I personally think they're the most surprising team out of the entire league right now. But I'm kind of pulling for them, not because I live in Indianapolis, but it's mainly because you have another player that played for a different franchise that kind of was like, you know what, you're not good enough for us, scooch along. Here they're having a massive success, and that is quarterback Daniel Jones. The first player that did that was on the Philadelphia Eagles named Saquon Barkley, who was the running back. He kind of got, yeah, we're not going to match your free agent offer that the Philly's doing, and Philly wins the Super Bowl. So I think it would be like poetic justice if the Colts win the Super Bowl this year. And the New York Giants franchise, not the fans. I don't want to put any of this on the fans, but the franchise, the guys that are running that franchise had two very influential players on their roster that couldn't make it work. So Saquon goes to Philly, wins the Super Bowl. Here Daniel Jones is like almost having a all-star season right now, going 7-2. I mean, they had their second loss this last weekend against the Steelers, but that was like a one possession game, and you're just like, wow, okay. Anyways, sports. But right underneath them is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield is having a fantastic season so far. He had I mean, not just him, but they both, the entire team had a roadblock against the Detroit Lions a couple weeks back. But overall, like, Baker is having a fantastic season. He has another similar story of kind of getting dropped by the Browns and going to Carolina and then LA. And now here he is in Tampa, and he's having a great season with a standout rookie wide receiver from Ohio State, Emeka Egbuka. So it's like the Bucks are looking to be one of the teams that could possibly dethrone the Eagles. And then lastly is the LA Rams. They're also at 6-2. They haven't really played anybody within their division yet, which the NFC West looks really, really strong. I mean, you got the Arizona Cardinals, Seattle Seahawks, and then San Francisco 49ers in that division. So you see the Seahawks, they're doing some pretty good damage. I mean, they had a beatdown of the Washington Commanders this past week, and then the Cardinals, that's the team that played last night on Monday Night Football against Dallas. Like, that's a very tough division. So we'll see how the LA Rams continue moving forward. But overall, I'd see those are the top like 5 teams in the league right now that will probably, if they don't make moves, they don't need to because they're doing pretty well. But if they need something, those are the teams to look out to see a longer push into the postseason. So it's going to be exciting. Okay, so for tonight is the first college football playoff rankings would be released. And as you can see right now on the screen, I've always shown you the top AP polling when it comes to the rankings of the college football playoff. From here on out, it would be the college football rankings. Now, AP will still do their rankings, but honestly, it's the college football is going to be the college football playoff, is going to be the one that matters the most, because that's how you're going to get your seeding for the playoff. And so as you see in the polling, the thing that this is my prediction, and again, recording time is around noon here on Tuesday. Later tonight around 8 p.m. is when the release of the first week of the rankings are going to be. But here's who I have in the top 5. I have Ohio State. I feel that's unanimous. Indiana, Texas A&M. The top 3 is pretty much set in stone. I don't see that moving. I think the 4th seed is where the football playoff committee is going to have Oregon leapfrog Alabama. And here's why. This is just me speculating, okay? Oregon has, let's do this. Alabama, Georgia, and Oregon all have 1 loss. And then you also have like Ole Miss has 1 loss too. But from 4 to 6 in the AP polling, it's Alabama, Georgia, and Oregon. I see Oregon leapfrogging both Alabama and Georgia because their lone loss is to the number 2 team in the country, which is Indiana. You look at Alabama's lone loss. That was to Florida State, week 1 at Florida State. Florida State's not even ranked in the top 25. Georgia's first only loss is to Alabama. So that's where I'm thinking, losses do matter. And we mentioned this in past episodes where people have asked about that question. It's like who you lose to and where they are currently ranked does matter. So with Indiana being the number 2 team in the league, going to Oregon, beating Oregon by, I think it was like 10, that's their lone loss. Why are then they underneath Bama and Georgia? So that's the one thing I'm going to be looking forward to see how that will play out. But that's just semantics right now because all 3 of those teams are going to make it to the football playoff at the end of the year. So we'll see how that lands. But seeding will matter because how the new bracket will be released. Okay. So those are my assumptions when it comes to the college football playoff. And I'm excited. I think this new format is very, very fun and engaging. And just to see some teams play in the northern Midwestern part of the country, like we had last year when Tennessee came to Columbus when it was frigid cold out. It's like those Rocky Toppers probably weren't used to that cold. So that I always found that interesting. And if I know Joe Clyde has been pushing this on his show and podcast, where he's like have all the way up to the college football semifinal games be played at the universities instead of these bowl interior dome neutral site fields. If that does happen, that would be very interesting. So I'm here for it. But at the end of the day, I just like to see that we do have a playoff. All right. All right, so we are going to close today's show with our questions. Now, please remember, if you have any questions that you want me to answer for the next week's episode, just go ahead and put those in the comments below and also in the Spotify comments, and I will do the best of my ability to answer those questions because, again, we're on this journey together of learning sports. Cool. So we have Suhasu8560 again, which, again, I know you mentioned this in the comments, like apologies for asking questions. Please do not apologize because no question is a stupid question, all right? Just because of the show today, I was only able to answer one of those questions. So the one I'm going to answer is your first one. And it says, in the video, this was last week's episode, in the video, you mentioned that the Pac-12 would become a major conference again. Then it would become Power 5. Does that mean when that happens, the playoffs would likely change to each winner of Power 5 plus 1 from Group of 5 and remaining 6 with the best rankings? So yes, is the short answer. However, there is a correction I needed to make based off of this, and this is another reason why I picked your question. So right now, I did a little bit more digging. When the Pac-12 goes to 8+ in the 2026 calendar football season, that's next year, they will not have the power term applied to the conference yet. Okay. To be a power conference, there's a lot of things that go with it, but essentially you need to have a certain amount of teams, and they do. They next year they will have more than 8 teams, which gives them, according to the NCAA, you need to have at least a minimum requirement for a football bowl subdivision or FBS league, and ensure access to a bowl tie-ins to potential college football playoff inclusion. They will have that. They'll still have Oregon State, Washington State, but they're bringing in a lot from the Mountain West, okay? Which is Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, San Diego State, Utah State. How many states? And then from the Sun Belt Conference is Texas State. There's another one. And what's very fascinating is Gonzaga University will literally put a football team together the first time since 1941. They will be in the Pac-12 conference when it comes to football. Now, Gonzaga, it's up there in Washington State. They are known for their basketball prowess. Okay, they have a very, very great basketball school. But when World War II came out, I did some research on this. When World War II came about in 1941, they did away with the football program. And then when the war was over, they chose not to invest the funds to field a football team for the men's. And that's interesting in and of itself. But all that to say is that's what the Pac-12 is going to look like next season. They will not have the power coined to their conference yet. There will probably still be a group of conference. So you'll have Power 4 and a group of 6. Now, how the college football playoff will play out, you will still have your top Power 4 conference champion winners get automatic bids. And then you will have your group at large conference winner to have an automatic bid. That's not to say that if, let's say, one of these teams, let's say for funsies, like Oregon State runs the table and they have a fantastic year, but they lose in the Pac-12 championship game, they might have a higher ranking in the college football playoff rankings that they could possibly get in as a group of 6 to get into the playoff. Now, it's hard for me to articulate about how fun and also how terrifying and nightmarish it is with college football, because you have over 150 schools trying to win a title, essentially. And then who gets invited, who doesn't get invited, like all this stuff. So I think the only thing that you can bank on is change is constant when it comes to the football playoff, and it will be constantly changed. I don't want to say on a yearly basis, but when you have NIL officially pumping in and you have all this conference realignment, which who knows, that's not even done yet. When it comes to the playoffs, that's going to be something that we just need to have a pulse on and see what happens. But as of right now, to answer your question, it would be the Power 4 will definitely get their conference champions in. And then the group of 6 at that point next year, group of 6, they'll have the conference at large champion in. And then it's going to be the seeds, like who has a higher rank based off of their performance. Okay. So I'm excited for next year when it comes to that, to see the Pac-12 come back to life. I don't know what that means for the Mountain West, but if you're one of those 5 teams from the Mountain West, you go to Pac-12 with the possibility of being a power conference, that's awesome for all those teams that got potentially stuck in the group category. So who knows? All right, and so that's the end of today's episode. And as I close out every episode moving forward, I'm going to call it as quick hits, essentially storylines that I'm going to have a pulse on as the week progresses, okay? And so what those are is, first of all, the MLS Cup is here. We have a few teams that have already survived the first round action, with Philadelphia Union, LAFC, and Vancouver all sweeping their opponents going into the next round, where the rest of them all have 1-1 series. So throughout this weekend, you're going to see some elimination matches and survival moving on. The NBA Cup is still in full swing with group play, so that's been fun to watch. And the first month of the NHL is actually in the books, with the Colorado Avalanche #1 right now with 19 points. That's pretty interesting. So keeping my eye on that. And then finally, college basketball has officially tipped off these past couple days. And looking at the men's and women's, like, no surprise for the men's, Purdue is ranked #1 in the country. And for the women's, again, UConn, no surprise there. So that's it for today. Catch the Lurks Lessons Show on YouTube and on Spotify. And yeah, happy learning, and I'll see you next week.